This is why saving the bees is everyone's business. When we think of bees, we typically think of honeybees, those fuzzy, buzzy insects that make honey and occasionally sting us when we're picnicking. But did you know that there are over 20,000 species of bees worldwide? And only about 700 of them are social bees living in hives with a queen like honeybees, bumblebees, and stingless bees. The other 19,300 or so are what we call solitary bees. They're just as important as social bees, but they don't live in colonies with other bees. Instead, they create their own nests and do all their bee stuff independently. Take, for instance, the mason bee. Mason bees are solitary bees found throughout North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. They're excellent pollinators, especially for fruit crops such as cherries, apples, and plums. In fact, a single mason bee can collect up to 2,000 pollen grains in a single trip to a flowering plant, which is more than twice the amount collected by a honeybee on the same plant. That's because mason bees have special pollen baskets on their legs for carrying pollen back to the nest. Honeybees have pollen baskets too, but their baskets are on their hind legs, which makes it harder for them to walk and forage for pollen. So instead, honeybees use their hairy bodies to collect pollen and then shake it off into a special pollen collecting area on their way back to the hive. As a result, they can only carry about 1,000 pollen grains per trip. Mason bees are only one example of a highly effective pollinator that isn't a honeybee. Other great examples include leafcutter bees and digger bees, both of which are also used in agriculture to pollinate crops. Leafcutter bees get their name from their habit of cutting circular pieces out of leaves to make their nests. These bees are a vital part of the agricultural industry, particularly for crops such as tomatoes, squash, and blueberries. Just one leafcutter bee can pollinate up to 400 blossoms in a single day. Digger bees, on the other hand, get their name from the holes they dig in the ground to make their nests. These bees are important pollinators of crops such as almonds, cranberries, and cherries. A single digger bee can collect up to 150 million pollen grains in its lifetime. So as you can see, there are many types of bees out there beyond the honeybee. Each type has its own unique characteristics and plays an important role in our ecosystem. Many of these bees are in decline due to habitat loss and pesticide use, which means that we need to take action to protect them. Otherwise, we may not have enough pollinators to keep our crops growing. But you might be thinking, I don't live on a farm. I don't use pesticides, and I have plenty of flowers growing in my garden. What more could I possibly do to help the bees? Well, it turns out that even small changes can make a big difference. For example, you can plant a bee-friendly garden with a variety of native plants that provide nectar, pollen, and food for bees. You can also avoid using pesticides in your garden and lawn, which can be harmful to bees. And if you do find a bee's nest on your property, don't be afraid to leave it alone. Even a small patch of wild space can provide a bee with everything it needs to survive. It may seem like just one person won't make much of a difference, but when we all do our part, it can have a big impact. So the next time you see a bee, take a moment to appreciate all that it does, not just for you, but for the entire ecosystem. And remember, even small actions can make a big difference. Saving the bees is everyone's business. It's our job to protect these important insects so that they can continue to pollinate our crops and provide us with the food we need to survive. So what will you do to help save the bees? Thank you for watching this video. If you learned something new, please share it with your friends and family. We'll see you next time.